Today I am making chicken pot pie. I'll put the link to the recipe below. I'm following-ish the recipe. I'm going to make this pie crust, which calls for 2.5 cups of flour, which I have in there. It calls for 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 cup cold unsalted butter cut into cubes, 1/2 cup cold buttermilk. I don't have buttermilk, so I'm going to take a 1/2 cup of milk and put some lemon juice in it to curdle it a bit. 1 or 2 tablespoons of cold water and a large egg beaten for the egg wash, that's for at the end. So I'll get this started. And I'm going in my sugar. I'm taking 1 tablespoon over because I lost some scoop in my hand out here. Pick up that. There's a sugar lump there. There we go. And a teaspoon of salt. I like using the sea salt. This is a 1/2 teaspoon. As then I can use it for my cooking as well as my canning. I don't have to have different salts. And I'm just going to mix that together. And here is the 1/2 cup of milk. It calls for buttermilk. I'm just using lemon juice I get at the dollar store. And a squirt in there to curdle it. And here in Canada, our butter is always in a big, huge 1-pound block. But here there's easy lines of 1 cup, and then there'd be like 1/2 cup, 1/4 cup on one side. So that is what I did. I didn't do a very straight line though. Not too worried. But here's the cold butter cubed. Supposed to throw that in there. And mix it around to coat all the butter with flour. Now I'm gonna mix this by hand. I don't want to mix it too much because I don't want all the butter to get really soft, but you want it to be crumbly. So I mixed it by hand and it's crumbly. Had to use both hands because I can't do it just by one hand. It's nice and crumbly. Also, the recipe called for unsalted butter. I use salted because that's what I like to use for any of my holiday baking or anything like that. So, if you want to follow the recipe. It also says to take this and freeze, put it in the fridge right now, and then add milk. But I'm just going to do that first, the buttermilk, and then I'm going to put it in the fridge because it calls to do it twice. And, well, actually it calls to the freezer. And I'm like, that's too much work. So I'm doing it my own way. As I said, I'll put the link to the recipe below if you want to follow the recipe. And then you can look at my video here and see how I'm doing it. So there's the milk. It calls for like 1 or 2 tablespoons of water, cold water. I guess depending on how much your flour absorbs the milk, etc. Depending on when your flour, when the wheat was harvested, and when the flour was made, and how fresh your flour is compared to when it was processed, will determine of how much it absorbs liquid. I've been reading up on flour and baking and bread and stuff, and that's why in recipes it says 5 or 6 cups of flour, or 1 to 2 tablespoons of water, because you can't really measure it, because it all depends on where your flour is coming from and how absorbent it is and the conditions that you're doing it. So if you're doing stuff like this in the summertime, the butter will have a hard time of staying cold and might melt a bit and might absorb more into the dough. So you might need less water. But in the wintertime, if you keep your house cool and your butter stays cold, even if you're maneuvering your hands in it, which does heaten it up a bit, then you might need more. So that's why I like looking at recipes and just winging it. Once you cook a recipe a couple of times, you know what it's supposed to look like, and then that's when you can MacGyver it. But I've not cooked this exact recipe before, but I have made pot pies before, and I have made pie crust, so I know roughly what I'm getting at, what I want to get at. So this is kind of what I want, and then soon I'm going to make it into a ball. That's going to need 2 hands now. And there I did 2 balls. It says to flatten it. I added about 1 tablespoon of water to get it. I'm going to put it in the bag. Just wrap and try and wrap. I'm reusing a pogo bag. And let's go get this one out to flatten it. Put that in the fridge. I reuse some bags, not stuff that has like raw meat in it, but this had already pre-cooked pogos, and I just finished that off this weekend. So actually today I had pogos for lunch and the last 2. So then I'm just using this bag go in the fridge and let that chill. Do you ever forget to take off the foil off your butter, and you have it kind of melted and it kind of sticks on there? When I get to the bottom of my foil, if I haven't put it in my butter dish, which I really should put in my butter dish, I just put this in the pan and I turn it on, because I'm going to get that last bit of butter off. Or I'll take the foil. My mom used to keep the foil that had a little bit of butter on it, or when she had margarine and stuff, and put in a Ziploc baggie in the fridge. And then we'd use this to wipe off the cookie sheets, or butter a dish with it, because it's already buttered. Now I'm just trying to get all of this butter off without burning myself. That's how much butter I got off that foil. I wouldn't be able to really scrape with a knife to get off. So now I am sauteing a couple of onions. I'm going to make a double batch of the pot pie. And I'm not following the recipe per se, because I'm going to add my own things, what I have on hand. Like, I'm going to use some leftover turkey gravy in there instead of just all broth. So it's going to be a little bit different, but it will be just yummy. I want to caramelize the onions to get all that yummy onion flavor. And to help the butter saute the onions, I am going to use some of my pumpkins from last year. And this pumpkin was literally from, we carved pumpkins on Halloween, and we put them out with a battery operated votive in there, and then once all the trick-or-treaters are gone, we bring it inside, and then I either roast it or boil it. And I canned this one, so I'm going to take the juices from here to help saute the onions. The pot pie recipe does not call for pumpkin, but I have it on hand, and I want to melt this, and I want to use it. If it's going to be pumpkin, I'm actually just going to dump that in with the onions to get the liquid out of the pumpkin. I like to hide vegetables and everything. My kids actually like pumpkin. That's about the only vegetable, squash, that they actually like. Usually in pumpkin pie, or pumpkin breads or pumpkin muffins. But I like to hide it in things like this. And here's a container that I chopped up of yellow carrots I got from the farm, and some potatoes. Again, the recipe doesn't call for potatoes, but I wanted to add some to go in the pie. So look at this. Look how much vegetables and stuff. Yummy! Now I'm just going to let that cook a little bit. So the vegetables aren't fully cooked yet, but I'm going to add more butter. I'm going to take some of the chicken broth I have in the fridge, in my big jar, and put some of that in there to help finish cooking. It does call for 1 3/4 cups of broth anyways, so I'm using some of this to help the cooking process. And get that going. And so I'm doubling the recipe, not really measuring of how many cups of veggies and that, but basically I'm doubling it because I did about 4 carrots and it says due to 1/3 cup diced onions. I just did 2 onions. I didn't measure. Didn't have any celery, but I'm putting pumpkin in. And that's about it. I'm not going to put garlic. I'm going to put some garlic powder in because I don't want to grate garlic right now. So I'm going to put some garlic powder in. Mixed in. Also calls for thyme. And pepper. And salt, but instead of using salt, I'm going to use thyme and pepper. Put that in there. And put some of the broth in. Add a little bit more broth. Get that up there. And instead of salt, I'm going to put a bit of the chicken bouillon powder, because it's basically salt and flavor. So I'll add more depth of flavor than just salt. Now I'm going to cook that up until the carrots are cooked. Then it calls for frozen peas. I don't think I have any frozen peas. I'm just going to use a can of peas. And it calls for 3 cups of chicken or turkey. Here I have almost 4 cups. So the way that I like to double recipes is not always double the meat, because in the pot pie that meat can definitely stretch. But I like to double the vegetables, so it's healthier, or at least more vegetables, more vitamins in it. So that's why there's the pumpkin. I put potatoes, a bit more carrots and onions in. Had used up all my celery in the soup yesterday. I forgot that it needed it here, and I wasn't going to go to the store just to get it. So we'll wait till that's all done, and then we'll come back. This is getting all cooked up here. The recipe calls for flour thrown in there. Again, you saw how well I measured that. Because you're going to be basically making a roux. But since I'm going to be throwing in gravy as well, I'm not going to make an actual true roux. I'm going to throw in gravy. That stuff is solid. I have to use my spoon to take that out. Because I had already made a roux from my gravy. And that was just the turkey drippings. I'm going to use about half of this jar. 3/4 of a jar. And some of the broth that I had made the other day. That's in the fridge. I'm just going to top this will thicken up. Now it's reheating. It's coming back to temperature. And I'm not going to add cream. I'm just going to add milk. Calls for about half a cup, so I'm doubling it to about a cup. This is my perfect measuring. Ha ha ha. And I'm adding the turkey or chicken or whatever. And you'll see, like, the meat to vegetable ratio will be about half. It doesn't need to be mostly meat. So I'm hoping it's mostly vegetables. See, it's already starting to thicken up a bit. Now I'm going to get my can of peas. And I'm using just a whole can of peas, so 398 mils. I'm throwing the liquid in there too. Why waste the nutrients in the liquid? Especially since this recipe calls for broth. You know? So now it's quite full. I've got a 1/4 inch to the top of my thing. I'm just going to bring that back up to a boil, and I'll thicken the sauce. And then I'll start rolling my pie crust. So I'm now using some of the flour that I put in jars in the garage. I'll put some flour down. Put the video up here. Let's see how I store flour. Some flour on the counter. Put that down. Make sure there's flour everywhere. If you don't have an rolling pin, which I do, but I think I've put it away so I don't do a lot of baking, any glass jar will work. So you just make sure that there's flour, and you just use it like a rolling pin. Just keep on rolling. Okay, I think this is quite thick. I'm going to take half of this. Where's my knife? And I think this pastry dough is quite thick. I'm just going to take half of it and roll it out. Because look at that, and it's bigger than the pie shape. So now I will just roll it this way now. So I might have double the amount of pie crust. Not a problem. I can always freeze the pie crust as is, or make other pies, which my family is not going to complain about, especially if I make a pumpkin pie, or more pot pies, or maybe a tortilla pie. I like to use also the leftover pieces of the pie crust, once I've cut it out and have extra, to make nuns pastry, which I will do as a separate video in the future, as it's quite a yummy dessert snack that uses up leftover pie crust. So this looks thin enough. Now I'm going to fold that over, and I'm just reusing the pie plates that I had from when I bought pie crust. just trim the edges of the pie crust that goes past the shelf, whatever pie plate you're using. You could also do this in a big lasagna pan. It would just not be as pretty as in a pie. There you go. And then I'm going to take this over to my filling, which should be really tied up first. There we go. And then I'm just going to fill this. Some of it is stuck at the bottom there, so I'm not going to get. There's some big pieces of turkey and vegetables. It's not quite burnt pieces, but they're stuck together because I had this up a bit too high. But I tasted it and it's fine. There's just a few black pieces of the flour that's stuck at the bottom. So I'm not going to put that in the pies. That's quite full. Now I will roll out my other pie crust. So now I'm taking the other half of that same roll and just going to roll it out. This one you want to make sure it's quite bigger than the other one, than the pie plate. There we go. Let's see, it covers the whole pie. Just gonna loosely trim past the edge. So. crimp the edges of the pie crust. Trim off any more that's gone past. And then you poke steam holes for the top. There you go. And then I'm going to bake it in the oven. Now I'm going to put 400 in my nice toaster oven, which has a timer and actually shuts off. To 400 for, well, it says 45 minutes, but I'm going to do at least 30 minutes. I'm not going to put an egg white wash on that because I forgot and I don't feel like it. But I'm going to put the time on for 30 minutes and it will just cook. Now, you can put a bit of foil along the edges to prevent the edges from burning. I'll see how it goes. I might put some foil on afterwards, but sometimes I do it and sometimes I don't. But I don't make pies that often, so I usually forget that step until the end, going, oh, it's getting a little bit dark. So you could do brown before and then take it off to brown the edges. Or what I usually do is I just let it cook, and then if I notice that they're getting browned, I put some tinfoil off on the edges afterwards. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. So it's going to go for 30 minutes. I'm going to test it and add another 10 minutes or so. Since this is a convection toaster oven, see, I have the little button there for, it's hard to see, little convection fan, but this is like awesome. There, this is convection. So you either decrease the temperature or you decrease the time when you're cooking convection. So, and I like this little toaster oven because it shuts off and it doesn't, I don't usually burn stuff in here. Yay! So there we have it. See you in a bit. And here's the second pot pie. Let's get a stab. And just the normal pie. That's the extra pie crust, which I will use to make nuns pastry. And I still have 2 more balls of pie crust in the freezer because I was planning on making a double recipe. But look at the filling. I still have lots of filling, and that's not just broth. There's lots of potato, carrots, onions, turkey. So I'm contemplating making more pies if I can find more pie plates, or making this into a big huge lasagna pan one, or putting this in the fridge and seeing what to do with it later. I might just use this on top of my chicken spaghetti tomorrow. Who knows? So, if you follow this recipe, because I just doubled the vegetables and that, and not so much the meat, don't double it. You'll be making at least 2 pies, unless your pie plates are really deep or really big. Because it says 9-inch pie plate, and those are 9-inch pie plates, or 8-inch. So not significantly different. But literally, this could make 4 pies when I doubled it twice. So like, not when I made it to make 2 pies, it's going to make 4. So the original recipe will easily make 2 pies. So, just thought I would forewarn you. So here is the finished pot pie. A little bit brown on some of the edges, not the other ones. But look at that crust. So, that was 30 minutes on convection oven, or 45 minutes regular oven. And this is perfectly cooked. Yummy. Now I'm going to do the other one. So, we're going to have this for supper. And this one I will cook, maybe I'll do it just for 20 minutes so that I can freeze it. So that I can just pop in the oven for 10 minutes. Because that way I won't overdo the crust. Because you want to have the flaky crust. So that's what I'm going to do with that. I could possibly just freeze it without baking at all. But I like to kind of have it baked a bit. It holds its shape better, and then the crust doesn't get all icky, like soggy and doughy. So, I'm going to cook it about 20 minutes. Put that one in the freezer in a Ziploc bag. And we're going to have that, I believe, on my menu plan I have it down for October 31st. No, October 30th, I believe. So, that's my plan. Whether we have it then or we end up having it earlier, who knows? But that's my plan. So, I love the sound of crust. I don't know. Anyways, there we go. It's not pretty. It wouldn't win a prize for looks, but I'm not really big about pretty food. I'm really big about good tasting food. I know that the filling tastes great because I tasted it. Because you always have to taste your food because otherwise it could taste crappy. And it's pie crust. So the pie crust is pie. I've never had a bad pie crust. I've had some that were more flakier than others. But I've never had a bad pie crust. So there we go. This is turkey pot pie. Please like, share, and subscribe, and feel free to comment below. Have a good day. See you later, friends. Bye.